Dumelang Sanbonani. Hello, South Africa. A very warm welcome to Expressions. This is definitely the place for you to air your views. Today, we are putting a very important and very special spotlight on the Matric 2020 results that are going to be announced. I am your host, Jacqueline Mapala.
And I'm your host, Masango. Class of 2020, are you ready? We all know, Jackie, that they wait with bated breath for their results for the year 2020. And it's no secret, ukuthi basebenze under unusual circumstances amidst a global pandemic as well. Siyabuza-ke si Expressions namhlanje. Has COVID-19 affected the class of 2020? That's the big question. What do you think? Lapekaya, interact with us. By all means, let's get this conversation started. Have a look at the first story.
Now, we are in location right now in Rosettenville. We're going to be speaking to the actual class of 2020, matriculants from 2020, to find out how are they feeling about the results that are going to be coming up.
I'm excited because I'm going to get results that determine my high school, well, the 18 years of school. But at the same time, knowing that we had worldly pandemic, I don't know, you never know.
It's a lot of mixed emotion. It's a bittersweet moment where, we're transitioning from high school to the rest of the world, but it's a good thing. And I'm feeling happy, but I know I did well.
It was really tough during the whole pandemic because, without a teacher's guidance, it's very hard to understand, So when you do it individually, you can read some other stuff, but then some other stuff needs a teacher right now, So it was really tough.
I believe that we were not ready as per se, but then we were prepared. So I think if all goes well and, the universe rewards us for our efforts, we should get the right results. But overall, we did our best.
I think I did good because I put in all the hard work, but I'm very anxious at the same time because we don't know what to expect. But overall, I'm very excited. I can't wait because it's a new year, new beginnings. We all want to go to university, we can't wait.
Bugeliwe Expressions, as we continue to have important conversations around the build-up to the release of the matric results of the class of 2020, Sise Alex namhlanje we're catching up with Utebogo Maisana, who's a young person who's also given it her all. In the midst of a global pandemic, these young people were still expected to perform. Let's go find out what their expectations are and what they had to deal with and all the challenges they faced during that time. Okay, Sicela ukhulume nathi ngengane yakho ukuthi abe prepare kanjani for ama exams.
Hey, Tebogo na le prepare gagolo. Na sa ba tlutswa sala bile kana go ya lockdown. Na tsere ke stress. Ha re yo mama, go sa re go repeat gape grade 12. A intshare gantle. Ke re go tla loka. Mo tlamonga dikolo di batla le bulela la ya ko sekolong and then ga ba shapa. Mara ska tlogela go bala. O tsele pele le go bala le eno gore ke di lockdown.
Haribo ka support o no mfa yona. Support o feeling ona how during nako ena ya go studisha for the exams tsa hae.
Support ne ke mo fa yona gore ne ke sa batla next. Ne ke re sheba dibuka tsa gago ke batla o tswalle. O tla ba le bokamoso bo botse o ska tshwana le nna. Ke sa rutegang ke sa tsebele sekgowa. A ke sebe sekgowa. Ka bona a ka rutega. A ka ya sekolo ne ke rekisa ditamati nna. O Marakeng ke godile jwalo ke tlogetse sekolo ke rekisa ditamati ke gone go godisa baratho ba ka mo support ga go gore a bale dibuka ka mola bana ba rasa ke re a sepela ko ntlong ya malemo wa gago o balela ko teng ka bana ba disturb.
So tell me, what are your expectations? What are you gonna get? Are you, because I heard someone told me that you're like an A student.
Well, that's everyone thinks, but I really have hope that I really pass my exam and get good results because I really worked hard and studying was really not hard. So if everything goes well according to how I planned it, hopefully I get accepted to the university that I want to go.
Do you think the curriculum, first of all, was fair at the pace that it was moving? Given what was happening last year, we just gotten exposed to a new pandemic that was doing the rounds. Ngapha, you have to focus on the curriculum and you still have to pass. Do you think our expectations as now for you guys are even fair?
I think they're very too high because we were just new to this matric, so we were expecting for things like to plan out fine. Now we had to face this pandemic, and we have to some way find a way to move around that, and they expect so much a lot, not knowing we also have our insecurities. We're not given enough support.
Talk to us about your support structure. What was your go-to backbone during the time you were going through exams?
Well, I had my mother and sister for that. They really gave me the support that I needed as their child and their younger siblings. I also had my mentor who was giving me sessions. We had a talk, lady to lady, how I was feeling, what I was doing to get rid of the stress. She even recommended that I do yoga just, to calm myself down. As you can see, we live in a very small room house. So it was kind of hard to study it sometimes because we are really sometimes overcrowded. So whenever I have to write my work, they also want to watch TV, they want to communicate. So sometimes they would switch off the lights, and then I was like, hey, I'm studying here. And I was like, I need to go to the other room to study, and that other room is really cold. So I had to sit on the floor and do my work so that I can submit and study. I have to think about my goals. This is what I have to do for me, my family, my future.
How did you prepare for your exams? Because I know last year was very stressful for everyone. How did you get to prepare? Ngapa COVID, ngapa it's the exams. Weren't you stressed?
Stressed, I was anxious. Sometimes I couldn't even get up and study, didn't have the motivation to even study because it didn't seem like everything was going to go back to normal. But then, so at school, we started these group chats where we sent questions if on a certain topic we didn't understand. So we'd send questions there, and then they would give us more clarity. And then I also had Saturday classes, but they were on Zoom with St. Mary's. So we did that online, and they were teaching us through Zoom, and yeah.
Okay, so what would your advice be to young people right now going through anxiety? Some of them very stressed right now, thinking about ama results abo, What would you say to them right now?
I would say it's okay to feel stressed. Whatever that you are feeling, it's part of life. But what you need to make sure you keep your mind in the right place. Know the things that are important in life, and make sure that everything that you do, you give it your best.
Speak to us about your goals. What do you plan on doing after you have your results?
I plan on going to study medicine at UCT and specializing in pediatrician after.
It was a very difficult year for everyone, but to have young people come here who are so motivated and inspired as you are, we're so happy to have you on the show. So what would you like to say to our viewers now?
I'd like to say thank you very much for having me, hearing my story. I hope you are all well, and take care of yourself during this lockdown.
We continue this all-important conversation around the Matric 2020 results. We'll be back right after this. You're watching Expressions.
Now, welcome back. You're still with Expressions. Now, did COVID-19 affect the Matric class of 2020? That's the big question, namhlanje. There's so much to go through, and I'm sure the numbers are also going to be coming through. We're going to be finding out statistics as well as Matric results become available. Mundomusha, what are your expectations, Lapekaya? Did they do well? Did they exceed expectations? Well, those are some of the conversations we're having, namhlanje. Have a look at the next insert.
So we want to find out, how do you think COVID has affected your results? Do you think it has had a positive or a negative impact on the results that you're going to be achieving or performing?
Because of the pandemic, we had to be independent, having to study on our own. So some people were incapable of doing that on their own. So I feel like those people might have had a negative impact. But for me, since I'm an independent person who can study by his own, I feel like it had a neutral impact. So it wasn't that bad, it wasn't that good.
I could say I partially had enough resources, but then to some extent, I believe that it wasn't always just about having enough resources. It was actually about having that support structure, of which we didn't have. Because as much as we could have had all the internet, all the data, all the Wi-Fi, all the textbooks, we lacked motivation as youths. And that's the main problem with a lot of us. You know, it's not that we don't know how to do, it's not that we don't know how to study, it's not that we're dumb, but we didn't have the motivation.
Me as an individual, I did not have the resources. For example, data. I did not have data to log in online and have a lesson. And most of the time, I would be so confused that, oh, there was a lesson. There wasn't much information regarding online lessons. There wasn't communication between schools and learners. That some of the people would say we got schoolwork, but some of us didn't get it because we don't know what was happening. So I think that had a very bad impact on us because some of us were behind and some of others were ahead, you know. So it wasn't a good idea for online classes.
Okay, the hustle and bustle continues as we look ahead to the release of the Matric results for this year. And of course, at the back of that, we're having conversations, Konalago expressions about this particular matter. Joining us now, Uputu Tebogo Magafana, who is the Secretary General of COSAS. Thank you so much for your time. Tebogo, let's just first speak about your expectations for the Matric class of 2020. How do you think they're going to do?
Look, firstly, we're from abnormal situation. What we can say as the organization, we're expecting everything. And I believe that the class of 2020, they've worked so hard because some were traumatized. So we must give them that benefit of the doubt that they have done well, especially in public schools, because we know some they were not attending because of this thing of COVID, but they end up writing exams.
Is it fair to expect them to do well, judging from the year that we're coming from?
It's not fair, it's fair. African kids, they are dedicated, and we must not undermine their intelligence. So even if they did not produce what we wanted, they have a right to go back to school and rewrite their matric, wearing school uniform. No one will turn them back because of we are from an abnormal situation and we are still in that abnormal situation. So no one must judge them. What we need to do, we need to support them. Remember, those kids, they went and write the exams. So now I believe in them that they have done very well. And we don't have any excuse of doubting them. Those who will not succeed, they can come back to the system of education, pre-tertiary, so that they can further their studies again. We don't expect educators to criticize those learners. They need to support them. They need to give them counseling. Remember that some age is against them. They have that pride that I'm old. Why I must wear school uniform? We must tell them importance of them coming back to the system because of the country that we're in today, without education or nothing. So we need to pursue them, but they must have matric.
So Tebogo, what would you say to young people njengamanje abasesikoleni that are watching expressions? Some of them, I know we normally take the time to engage with young people as well before we have a particular conversation, who'd say, you know what, we just feel sometimes COSAS blows off hot air. They don't really speak to solutions for us young people. We see them on the ground. Sometimes we see them shutting down schools, private schools, but they don't really speak to our issues. What would your response to that be?
We do speak the issues like now, as they're reopening. We met with a department that also came with a solution that they can't go to school now because of there are no PPEs, and in rural areas, we know the situation. We still have mud schools. We told that we need mobile classes for learners to go to school. Because it can be correct that in Gauteng, learners are attending normally, but you go to deep area in Limpopo or Eastern Cape, students are not attending because of their school is not okay. So those who are saying we don't bring a solutions, they must think thoroughly before they speak. Remember, we are living in a contested terrain in the country. So as COSAS, we need to unite all learners in the country, your private, your public, because of all of us, what we want is betterment of education more than anything.
Let's continue this conversation on all our social media platforms. You are watching Expressions. We'll be back right after this.
What solutions do you think government should be bringing in to ensure ukuthi ingane zethu are first of all equal in terms of the hierarchy yey'kole?
Well, the government should actually make the education free for all and make sure that everyone gets the same equal quality education. In as much as you're paying school fees, can I also get the same quality of education as much as I'm not paying school fees in a public school? Can I have utilities, assets that are important for me to use at school to be sufficient enough? I do not need to be lacking on certain things, then that means I cannot study harder.
South Africa should prioritize the right to education, which is Section 9 in the Constitution of Republic of South Africa, and also that they should adhere and try to look at the concluding observations made by the UNCRC that indeed South Africa has a gap when it comes to education, and we should start there and fixing that gap, because even now, if you look at this situation right now at hand, LECO has been opened. Other learners are excited about that LECO has been opened, like it's going to lead to dropouts of learners. What about those who are already in private schools? They have things that keep them motivated. Us, we have LECO. Obviously, we're going to be forced to drop out. Teenage pregnancy will also rise. It will add more to our social life, will be more at risk.
As public school student, when you pass with 40%, you actually go to the next grade. But in private schools, when you pass with 40%, that is a fail. So how does the government expect us to excel in life and be going to colleges and universities if our pass rate is actually lower than their pass rate? So meaning for university classes will be filled with private students than public students, and then now it increases unemployment rate. Because of now, I have put 40% pass in my pocket. I don't have a job. I don't have any diploma or bachelor pass or degree because of I cannot go to university.
Government should start focusing on children at an early age. I would like to link it with the saying that goes, isn't it better to fix young boys than to mend broken men? So the government should start fixing young children and ensuring their education than to fix them while they are broken, because you can no longer fix anything there.
Welcome back. You're still watching Expressions, your number one youth current affairs show. We're putting a very important spotlight on a very important issue around the inequalities that exist between private and public schools. And the poll question is simply this: is COVID-19 exposing more of the inequalities that exist within our public and, at least most importantly, our basic education system here in South Africa? Now, I had an opportunity to speak to Tracy, who represent Equal Education. Take a look at this insert. A very warm welcome to Expressions.
Thank you so much for having us.
Tracy, what is the difference between IEB as well as the National Senior Certificate?
So the difference between IEB is that IEB is private schools. Then the National Senior Certificate is for public schools. And also how I think the schooling year the schooling calendar is not the same. So the IEB will have their own schooling calendar. Then the National Senior Certificate will have its own calendar. So I don't think there's a need to really separate the two. I think if you live in a democratic country like South Africa, we need to just provide one education system. And I think that will try and address some of the inequalities that we see within the education system, especially the inequalities that are perpetuated by COVID-19.
So Tracy, our poll question is, has COVID-19 exposed more of the inequalities? I mean, what are the challenges that COVID-19 has brought to IEB as well as the National Senior Certificate in terms of the impacts that it had on learners?
The moment that we find ourselves in COVID-19 pandemic, if you are sharing a textbook, how are you going to share that textbook with another learner? If in public schools, learners are sharing desks, it means because of COVID, you can't share desks. One learner should sit on that one desk. And now there's overcrowding, meaning we need to maybe split the classes into 4, and we don't have enough classes. So I think the moment that we find ourselves in doesn't like reveal anything new, but it reveals the inequalities that exist within the public schooling system. One of the things that this moment also exposed, especially between maybe within the support that teachers and learners need, is the issue of mental well-being. So psychosocial support, if I may put it that way. So teachers would sometimes serve as social workers. We know them, they serve as everything while teaching. So now you find that learners do not have access to psychosocial support. And I think returning back to school, those are some of the things that we need to also think about. How are we providing psychosocial support to learners, to teachers, to ensure that they're able to cope during this moment.
In terms of the curriculum between public and private schools, what is the fundamental difference between the two?
Curriculum sometimes, in most instances, especially in private schools and public school, is the same. But I think the outcomes or performance is not the same, and the reason for that to be the case is because of the resources, the required resources for one to be at the advantage to understand the curriculum, but also to have good outcomes in terms of writing your exams and tests that you are required to pass.
Essentially, the learners, once they've matriculated, are all going to go to the same universities. So we wanted to know, what are the advantages that the one has over the other?
So when you go to university, you sometimes need to learn the language before you even understand the content. Then you need to learn the curriculum. So I think it takes a lot. And it's also overwhelming to be in a high institution, especially if you come from a public school. You need to work many times harder than learners who come from a private school. So I think those are some of the things that we need to acknowledge, but it's important for our government to act agently to address these inequalities. So if we want to provide an education system to young people in this country, we need to ensure that it's of good quality and every young person can access it despite their background.
But what is the way forward? What is the solution? Just so that our learners are on par with their counterparts.
There's a law that outlines what makes a school to be a school. So it's important for government to comply with that law. So it speaks about how many learners should be in a class. It speaks about the infrastructure that is needed in each and every public school. So I'd say it's important for our government to pull up their socks and give it their all. Fund public education system. Ensure that teachers are able to teach under good conditions. Learners are able to learn under good conditions, and everyone is able to compete. With I think equal access to equal resources.
So, Mubakhedu, we've come to the end of today's episode. A lot of food for thought, especially with that conversation that I had with Tracy, where she was really talking about the challenges that we're finding in our public schools system. But I think what we definitely want to reiterate is that despite the challenges that young people are going through, learners are going through during COVID, we want them to persevere. And I think it's very important for us, as expressions, to make sure that we cover all the bases and speak to the stakeholders. But I think young people have to decide for themselves whether these inequalities are more exposed because of COVID, or these are just inequalities that have always been there, right?
Yeah, and as expressions with Jackie, we've brought in all angles to the story. And of course, for me, the highlight was speaking to the young people who said, you know what, we feel we're at an advantage, others saying we feel we're at a disadvantage. So it was a good, engagement session with them. And of course, to see which we have young people in the country that are so involved in their education, it shows which we are right on the right track. Sibonge kakhulu for your participation in Kundgan Zethu Zokuxhumana, Mntomosha. Till next time, nsale kahle.
Adios, muchachos. Thanks for watching. Bye.